Hello and welcome to the very first one we've got, the deep dives. This is the Inspired Writer Show, and I'm here today with Cindy Blair. Hello and welcome to the show.
Hello.
So basically what we're going to do is we're going to have sort of like a chat and have a bit of fun, and we're going to sort of do a deep dive into how I can help you and sort of things and insights I can give you too along the way. But with no further ado, I want to go straight into it. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and what sort of challenges you've got at the moment.
Okay. Well, I've always enjoyed writing. And I wrote some short stories in high school way back when. And then got busy with life and I didn't write anything for a long time. But then I went into the U.S. Navy and I was working as a weather forecaster, and I was became a mother and I was married. So there were lots of challenges that I felt compelled to write. I felt that was a release for me. And so I wrote some more short stories. I never submitted them anywhere.
Okay.
But that was my fantasy world. I escaped into my writing.
Mm.
And then after I got out in 2002, I started writing poetry, gobs of poetry, like 2 poems a day, some of it good, some not, and then I went ahead and published a book of my poems.
When did you publish your book?
I went through a company called Create Space, which is a division of Amazon.
Yeah. Now they are obviously they're defunct now. There's a paperback, but yeah.
Well, now they've now Kindle bought out Create Space, so now so I'm in the process of transferring my book, which you can still order online, a paper copy from Amazon.com, but they want me to transfer it to a Kindle version so that they can sell it on the Kindle also. Okay.
So you've released a book. How many years ago was it released? Was it recent? Was it?
No, not very recent. 7 years ago, in 2013, in January. And I did my own promotion, my own sales, and then I had a friend of mine that marketed the book for me. So I sold about 100 copies, which is good for a self-published book.
Yeah. So. That's good. Very so. That's wicked.
Yep. And since Amazon requested my Kindle version, then they re-released it with a promotion on Amazon.com. So a couple of my friends have now bought a copy recently. So it, not a lot of money, of course, but it's kind of nice to see that royalty check in your direct deposit here. So,
so what's your biggest challenge you've got at the moment with writing? Is it
the biggest challenge I have in the moment? Yes, the biggest challenge I have in the moment, of course, is self-esteem about my writing. I'd like to take some of my short stories and expand them into novellas, not full-fledged novels, but novellas where maybe I could create an anthology of 3 to 5 stories. And but I don't have confidence that my storylines are anything different than being put out normally.
Why do you believe that? Why do you feel that they're not any different from?
Because it seems like all the books I read
Mm.
have a common thread, and it also seems like, um, when I read writers' classes or essays on writing, there's always the same pattern. Of course, there's um, the protagonist,
Yeah.
and then um, there's something wrong with the protagonist, like they lost their mother or father, or they've just recently been divorced, or so there's something going on in the protagonist's life that is not right, and then they meet somebody that helps them. If it's a romance, they meet somebody, they fall in love. If it's an adventure, then they meet a superhero, maybe. But the protagonist seems to meet somebody that can help them through their troubles, and then they overcome in the end. Um, so it's hard to think of scenarios that break out of that pattern.
Okay. Um, as far for me, my advice would be I've been listening to Reedsy recently. I've been reading Reedsy. Reedsy's got some training stuff that's free. I highly recommend that. If you want to sort of learn a little bit more and help understand what great characters to build, what dialogue to write, what sort of stuff, then I, go onto reedsy.com, and they've got loads of free stuff. And basically, you get an email each day, and they'll just talk you through a few things from really successful authors, and they'll give you a couple of little points to what you need to do today. Maximum looking at about 10 minutes a day, and it's really, really helpful. So I would look at that. I think, if you want to sort of like improve yourself, one thing that I always talk about with your emotions, so obviously if you're not feeling that you're good enough, it may be just sort of like you don't feel you're prepared, and that's something you maybe sort of need to consider. It might be the fact that you need to perhaps learn a little bit more about writing and stuff like that. But there's just, before I go into a bit more about confidence, just wanted to know what book that you're looking to write. Obviously you talked about romance, whatever. Have you got a particular idea that you want to do for novellas, sorry?
Well, my short stories are adventures about women empowerment, of course. So I say, of course, because I'm middle aged, and I've seen a lot of my friends and I have overcome um, and been able to empower other women by sharing our experiences. So instead of a self help book, I like to tell stories that are examples of these empowerments.
Well, fair play. So that sounds wicked. So, have you got a particular position where you want to be? What category? Do you want to be sort of like a thriller? Does it want to be, what sort of area do you want to do? It could be fantasy. It could be loads, couldn't it?
Well, right now it's more like my protagonist meets other women, and then these women, usually older women, help her through a crisis.
Okay.
And then they feel empowered at the end. And then in one of my stories, that woman ends up being the older woman that empowers somebody else. Okay. So it's like a chain reaction. And I want to set it in an area that I'm familiar with, but that I don't live in. Like like in the Navy, I was stationed in the South for a time, South USA. I was also stationed in Sicily for a time. And so if I set my stories in those places, I know about the culture and I know about the people. But then I'm not stuck in upstate New York, climate or
Yeah.
that type of thing.
Yeah, no, my advice would be is obviously read is really good and it'll be helpful and it'll be able to find what sort of categories that will work for you, and then perhaps have a look at some books. You don't have to pay for them. You know, Kindle. There's loads of free ones available, bestsellers and stuff that you can perhaps look and just get some ideas. You don't have to copy. It's just to get some inspiration, sort of like what sort of things they'll be looking at. You know, one of the great things really for us authors is yes, it is important to have your passion, but you need to know, you know, who you're writing for as well, because if you don't write it for people that will be interested in it, then you'll find that you won't make the money for that. So that's what I would do as far as that's concerned. But one thing I really want to start to go deep on really is your confidence. You're saying that you don't feel people will be interested in your work and stuff like that. You know, I just want to sort of talk you through how you felt when you had 100 copies of your book sold. You know, bearing in mind that I'd imagine most of them weren't people that you know. So how did you feel when you found that that many people have actually bought your first book?
Well, I think when I reached the 50 mark, then my friend who was doing some of the marketing said that that's normal for a self-published book, was 50. So once I reached 50, everything was just icing on the cake after that. And I didn't spend a lot on marketing, but I would like carry a bunch of my books around to poetry readings.
Okay.
And then after the person that was reading sold their materials, after the event was over, after the person left, then I felt free to sell my own books. Then I was like, oh, well, here's a copy of mine if you'd like. and I got a lot of good feedback. I've since then edited some of the poems in there, and I may just submit the poems separately, to journals and things. But I have to be careful because a lot of times they don't accept previously published work.
No.
But sometimes they don't consider self-published work as published work. So.
No. Divide, isn't there, between traditional and self-published? They get a very poor view of us, which is hugely unfair, if I'm honest. But say, did you know? Just I want to push you a little bit on this. How was the feeling inside? How did you feel when you sort of like these people bought your book and and they enjoyed it? How did you feel inside that? Wow, somebody I don't know has spent the time to sit and actually read your book and want to buy it. Something was it powerful for you? Was it amazing? Just, oh my god! Or was it? How did you feel with it?
It was a little bit of euphoria. Yeah. It was amazing. As a writer, there's no feeling like it.
No, there isn't. No, as I say, absolutely amazing, and it opens up what's possible. It's probably why you inspired you to start doing this. A lot of authors and writers, and me included, feel this sort of imposter syndrome and we don't feel good enough. I personally would say to you that, be kind to yourself and go, look, my book's not be perfect. I can quite attest to the mine. I was 16 years old when I stopped writing, and my first book, I'll go back on it now and I cringe because it's grammatically not as good as we're nowhere near as good as where it should be now. But obviously I've learned. So you've got to be kind to yourself, and it's just starting that process off. I also would recommend as well anything that you feel that has been a really big achievement for you, or any good reviews you get, anything like that. Then I would have it in a file somewhere. So whether you want to put it on your laptop or you want to have it on your phone, screenshots, whatever you feel. So when you're feeling down and going, I don't feel I'm doing very well, just review them and have a look at them, and that will give you the inspiration as well. I know this is quite a bit of work, but email lists as well. If you start building an email list and start talking to people, they're going to consider you a rock star, because not many people write books and publish them. That 1%. There's a stat. I could keep going on about this. I don't know where you know it. There's a stat from the New York Times that they did a survey, and basically 81% of Americans want to write a book. Only 1% do it, and you're one of that 1%. So that's something you got to go. Do you know what? That's absolutely amazing. So many people go to work and they feel awful, but they can get on and do their job. If we feel awful as writers, we don't do our job. It's as simple as that. So the challenge that we have is in a lot more an internal one. So I think you need to go, actually, I've had 100 people buy my book. A lot of them I don't even know. And I've actually published a book, you know, and a lot of people haven't. So that's something you should be appreciative of. And again, if your mind is saying, you know, you don't feel that you're prepared, then I would recommend having a look. You know, I've got a romance book that's I want to write, and I don't feel that I'm prepared enough at the moment. So I've spent time with Reedsy. I've spent time reading absolutely shed loads of romance books and getting ideas of where I want to be. So my book is going to be a contemporary romance in the 90s. You know, I need to now find out whether people are going to be interested in that sort of stuff. It's going to be quite hard hitting as well, but it's also got to be a good thread at the end, because it's got to be one about hope. So really, for me, confidence is something that you need to sort of understand, that you are going to feel this way, and just to do it anyway. And the more progress you make. And then the last thing I'd talk about confidence as well is track back. So 2 years ago, where was I at? How was I feeling? What was going on? And you'll start to see that actually, you know, each time you're making progress. And that's what another thing that I would recommend to sort of build that confidence in yourself. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So my target audience would be a wide range of women.
Okay.
But women who maybe want an alternative to the typical romance.
Okay.
Because the typical romances, they don't show empowered women usually.
Okay.
You know, I haven't read too many where the woman like owned her own business, or you know, was set on her feet but fell in love anyway. You know,
there's still quite a lot of older books out there, but I would recommend having a look at, you know, again, this is up to you, where you want to go. I say I'm not going to sort of like push you into the position where you don't want to do it, because if you don't enjoy what you're doing, then you're not going to write it, and it's going to be hard work. But a lot of the books that I read now, you know, the women have got, you know, a lot of them written by women anyway, to be fair, but a lot of them have got, you know, high powered jobs, and they're doing really well with themselves and stuff like that. You know, they've got that sort of like representation, but there is still quite a lot of older books, and a few still recent ones that perhaps are not quite so good. So I can understand that. So what do you love? So if I had to say, what do you love? You know, it doesn't have to be about writing. You know, what's your sort of like passion? What do you love?
I love things that are kind and loving, like sunsets and flowers, beautiful flowers, things that create a positive spiritual feedback, rather than picture of a dead weed, or you know what I'm saying. It has to be a positive, something growing, becoming. I love animals. I have 2 cats.
Okay.
A lady cat and a male cat, and I love just watching them play with the toys and stuff. Also a good snuggle once in a while. But when I go online on Facebook or whatever, I look up funny animal videos. So
That keeps you entertained.
Yeah, hours of entertainment, of course, with funny animal videos. I love camaraderie. Of course, being in the military, we were part of a team, and we were working towards world peace. So I like being part of groups that are that type of. Of course, I'm a member of veterans groups, but I also found that I really enjoy singing.
Mm.
And I became a member of an a cappella chorus
That's wicked.
where, yeah, yeah. So I really found my voice. And unfortunately, here in the US with the COVID-19, we
Mm.
haven't been able to meet
No.
to sing in person.
Yeah.
And that's really tough because we're still trying to learn new songs, but we
Mm.
have to learn them on our own.
Yeah.
So,
Have you any way to do Zoom calls where you sort of like all meet up and do it like
well,
that?
we do meet up on for rehearsals once a week
Okay.
on the Zoom call, but due to technology lag or whatever, we can't sing at the same time all
Right.
together.
Okay.
So,
As far as you saying before about you love to go into nature, do you often make that as a trying to speak? Do you make that as a habit? Is something you do on a daily basis? You know, I'm really lucky. I've got a woods just near where I live, so I can do that on a daily basis. But you have you got that opportunity?
the opportunity to what?
Go into nature because you're talking about you love flowers and you love that type of stuff.
Oh, I can. I don't particularly like being outdoors unless it's the perfect day.
Okay.
And like 2 weeks ago, it was really cold. Like the highs were in the 50s.
Mm.
And then this week, the highs are in the 80s. So
Yeah.
either it's too cold or it's too hot or it's raining or or whatever. But those perfect days when we're in the mid 70s and it's sunny, yes, I do go to the park or um, I live near Ontario Lake,
Okay.
so I can drive like half an hour
Mm.
north and I'll be on the shores of the lake. So I do go up there and watch the waves and things.
Mm.
Um, but for me, it has to be perfect weather day. I don't want to go out in the rain. I don't want to go out in the cold or the heat. Other people go out every day, and I don't know how they do it.
Fair enough.
Like, yeah.
Okay.
So virtually, I do my nature virtually. Like there's a virtual tour through Letchworth Park, which is near me, and that's a state park that's well known.
Mm.
So a lot of people go hiking through there, and then they video their hikes, and then I can just jump on their hike.
Yeah, do you find that enjoyable then? Is that
Yes.
yeah, okay, fair enough. And do you have a conversation? Do you make it sort of like an event there, or
Um, I suppose I could. Yeah.
so moving on to the next question now. How do you want to be remembered? And I obviously put this in the group recently, but it's a question I think is really quite a powerful one. How do you want to be remembered? What's your legacy you'd like to leave this world?
Um, I think that I want people who have actually met me to remember if I if I made them feel good.
Mm.
I don't ever want to be the source of angst
Okay.
or conflict or anything like that. I used to be very bitter. I used to be a very bitter person, and the tone of my voice was always condescending. Like you're not living your life right, you know,
Mm.
type of
Yeah.
thing. And I came to a realization. All cards on the table. A couple times in my life, I've been suicidal and hospitalized for that. When I came out of my last failed attempt,
Mm.
I was reborn, so to speak. I decided that every day I'm going to choose life.
Mm.
I'm going to choose to live my life the best I can.
Mm.
And um, and then I reaffirmed my Christian views that until Jesus comes again or until God takes me home,
Mm.
I'm just going to live my life day by day and handle it, and I can handle it. So that was more than 5 years ago now. So it's um,
Mm.
that type of depression, that type of suicidality is gone for me. I've recovered from that. So I think if women are empowered to begin with, that they won't be depressed. They won't get depressed in the
Mm.
first place. Um, so that's where I'm coming from. Uh, I did at first wanted to write a self-help book. You know,
Mm.
I came through these troubles, and you can too. But the market is flooded with self-help.
Mm.
It's so flooded with, find your inner peace and, and
Yeah.
do it this way. And um, so I thought that if I write fiction with a ring of truth,
Yeah.
that people can escape their reality like I did through writing. They could escape their reality through reading and be immersed in this lovely fantasy about empowered women. Um, and eventually, of course, I say, of course, a lot of people like myself want to write our memoirs.
Yeah.
I want to write the struggle I went through. Um, because I'm not a normal American woman. I am a Navy veteran.
Yeah.
I was a single parent for a while, and I have experiences. Um, like there's some women veterans and there's some single parents out there. Um, but, each one of us has a different experience, a different uh, way of making it through.
Mm.
Uh, So, yeah, I eventually would like to write my memoir,
Mm.
um, even if only my family can keep it or whatever. Um, because a memoir, to me, is so much more than just writing the facts down.
Yeah. It
Like
is.
my family knows I was in the Navy, my family knows I was a single parent, but they don't know the feelings I went through. They don't know the experiences I actually had
Mm.
uh, through those months and years. So I would like, and I know writing a book, uh, it can reach a wider audience than just me telling my story.
Yeah.
And it was the same with my poems. I would go to poetry readings and I would read my poems, and they got published in several local anthologies.
Mm.
Um, but when I self-published my book, it was for the purpose of reaching a larger audience,
Yeah.
uh, not to make money. And
Fair
it's the
enough.
same with books. If I make a little extra money, okay, but uh, I'd rather get my message out to a larger audience.
Mm. Just go back. I'm not going to sort of like go too much about what happened to you sort of over 5 years ago. But I am sorry that you went through that, and I can totally relate because I had a bad experience myself sort of 5 years ago. But just to go back onto your confidence, people that suffer with depression and anxiety, we have to get up each day and get on and battle, and that drive that you've got, very few other people have that don't suffer. Um, that use that to take you to where you want to take your life, because we all want progress, we want to be all want to be happy. So that's another thing to sort of use as a bow for your confidence. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
I've achieved it, I've overcome something a lot of people don't. So you've got to be proud of yourself that you've done that too. As I say, I'm struggling on that is horrific. And obviously, if you are going to write memoir or you are going to write a book, please be prepared, because when I wrote my first two books, I found that I had to go and live those experiences again, and that was hard work. But I needed to do it so that I can
Mhm.
convey how I felt. So be understanding to yourself, because it will bring you back into that past. So if you make sure you look after yourself and be kind to yourself, because there's going to be times where you're not going to be able to write. And I called it the vulnerability hangover, and it's something that Brené Brown talks about too. You know, you're going to have days afterwards when you've written sort of like a really quite a powerful chapter or a past experience, and that's going to knock you out. So understand that actually this isn't going to be 3 months and I'm going to write this book and it's going to be out. It's going to take me a lot longer. It's going to be hard work. I'm not trying to make you feel bad, but honestly, the release that I felt when I unburdened myself with all the things that I've gone through in my past was quite cathartic for me, and it was my own therapy, and I found it amazing. So just be aware of that, and that's what I want to touch on. Really, I don't want to take you back into that, because that, you know, that's something you move forward from, so you shouldn't be proud of.
Yeah, I don't, I, I don't at this time have any post trauma about it.
Okay.
When I think about that time, I do remember the feelings, the deep feelings, but I don't revisit that
Mm,
time. Um, I have worked through the feelings already
mm,
through therapy. So maybe writing about them won't be as traumatic
okay.
as you're making it seem.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
fingers crossed for you. Then, you know, I hope that isn't the
yeah,
case. I just want you to be prepared. And if you have had therapy, I didn't when I wrote mine, so that may be a benefit to you too. And again, if you have had therapy, then I imagine you've been given skills and tools to help you anyway. So if you do,
yes,
you can see where it's going, like I do now. If I know what I'm starting to fall into depression and anxiety again, I can feel it happening and coming. So then I'll go, right, I need to fix this. So I imagine you'll feel the same way. So I just want to prepare you really, to be fair, just in case.
yes, yes.
Okay. Okay. Another question I'd like to ask you: where are you making contribution to something bigger than yourself?
Well, like I said, I'm part of veterans groups.
Yep. Yep.
I'm part of spiritual groups,
Yep.
um, and I'm making a contribution bigger than myself because I've become a volunteer peer support advocate. So other people that are struggling,
Mm,
either spiritually or in with depression or
mm,
whatever, I can counsel them. I can talk to them. I can
yeah.
help
You
them
can relate
through
to
it.
it.
So that's my contribution. It's kind of why I don't want to write a self-help
Mm,
book, because there's so many books out there, you know, and mine might just get lost in the fray.
mm,
Um, but uh, through Facebook
mm,
groups, like um, like Christians with depression and anxiety is one of the groups I'm in. And people go on there and they're like, you know, what's the meaning of life, you know, and why should I go on living, and
mm,
things like that. And I can encourage them. I could say, you know, well, there's life out there. You have to make life,
yeah.
um, even if it's just looking at pictures of sunsets
Yeah.
online, you know.
Yeah.
um, the advantage of going through Facebook groups is that, you know, they have a computer, you know, they have access to online resources.
Yeah.
Um, so, so that helps
Mm,
to direct them to online resources.
mm,
And I feel like I'm making a difference. There was one lady that was feeling very suicidal. It was her birthday.
mm,
but her twin brother had committed suicide several years before that.
Mm.
And she just didn't want to go on. But lucky for me, she kept talking to me
Mm.
for an hour or so. We were just chatting online.
Mm.
And I said, would your brother want you to kill yourself? And I said, can you take this day, your birthday, to remember the good things that you loved about him and the good memories? And so now, I think that it's been many years. Anyway, I just saw she recently came up on her birthday again, and she actually started her own business. She's
That's amazing. And you've had a contribution to that, and so I'm sure that you're really proud of her as well for turning it around. But you'd have to go into a dark place yourself to understand and relate to her and be able to help her.
So it's so much bigger than myself.
Yeah, that's awesome. Couple of last two questions, and I go on to go back into sort of the writing side of things, if I'm honest. So, what is your vision for your books? Where do you want to? If I said sort of in 3 years' time after this phone call, you said, this is where I want to be with my books. This is how I want to feel. Just let it loose. Just go for it. Tell me where you'd love to take your books.
I'd like to get feedback from my readers that that they were able to enjoy it. My books are going to be for entertainment. Like I said, even though the subject is going to be empowerment, women empowerment, rather than a self-help book, I'd rather them be entertained, to be able to escape their reality and enjoy the experience of walking with these characters through the stories. So I'm hoping that I can touch a wide audience. A lot of my poetry books I did sell to family at first.
Yeah.
So I would say a good 25 of those books went to family. But it was a greater feeling when people I didn't know bought my book and then said thank you for sharing and things like that. So I want to do the same with my books. 3 years from now, I hope to have 1 or 2 books out.
Okay.
A novella or anthology of short stories, or to start out with. I may expand into a full story. You never know where the characters are going to take you, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah. They take over, don't they? Jump out of the page.
Sometimes, yep.
And the last question I'd like to ask you is what is there any questions you've got for me? It doesn't matter what it is. If there's a sort of a burning question you'd like to know about marketing, about wherever it is, you're more than welcome to ask me. I'm an open book, so you're more than welcome to ask me.
Okay, so when I get my first book finished,
yep,
should I self-publish on Kindle first to see if there's reactions? Or should I propose to the larger publishers to see if someone will pick it up?
My personal opinion on that one is that I would start with the Kindle and then release a paperback, which is free with KDP. So all you need to do is perhaps just the cover, just slight change of slight tweak of cover. That's what I would do. Going to traditional publishers, this is just my personal opinion. This is not a gospel, but my personal opinion is that traditional publishing now, you get, I think it's 1 in every 5,000 chance of getting a publishing deal, and the amount of money that you actually get from it isn't worth it at all. I think it's like less than $5,000 now. It's getting less time, so you get $5,000 up front if you're lucky, and then you get royalties of 14.9% for your Kindle when you get 70%. You know,
Right.
and even less. You know, I can't remember the exact figure, but it's paperback's even worse. You know, it's like 3%. You know, don't quote me on that, but it isn't really good at all. So for me,
Okay.
I would start to build an audience with people. If it means that you know, your book is a specific area, whether you need to build a Facebook group or whether you just want to sort of go out and talk to people in the groups that you feel that be related, and then and ask them, you know what you think to it, and just start to get that sort of like thing. But one thing that has changed massively in the last sort of like 4 years in particular, and you know, now it's just getting even more, but you need to market. That book needs to be marketed. So if it's a case of sort of like, right, okay, I need to make sure that, and there's three things you need to make sure that the cover is related to the genre that you are writing in. It's really, really good, and it doesn't scream self-published, because there's a lot of books out there that have been released and they're not very strong at all, and people do judge a book by cover, if I can speak properly. Your blurb has to be really good as well. So that's going to be quite a strong blurb to get people in, to get them understand. You know, again, that's a really difficult thing for a lot of authors to do. I've got the hang of it, but I still wouldn't say I'm perfect at it, to be honest with you. And the next thing is make sure it's really well edited. You know, get a professional editor. You know, these things cost money, so it is about being very creative with finding ways of doing it. But that's what I do. I, you know, build some audience that will be interested in your book, get the book out there, and if you can afford to use paid advertisement, you know, it doesn't have to be Facebook ads, it doesn't have to be Amazon marketing, it doesn't have to be BookBub ads. You know, there's some paid sites where you can pay for them to you know, the people to, you know, advertise it, so potentially you could get some thing, but then they only want like 99 cents deals, which is a bit difficult as well. But that's what I do. It's going to take your time, but the more people you've got in your audience, the better your book will be, because obviously they'll be interested in buying it. And again, if you're going to write books that are going to relate to people that maybe suffer from anxiety and depression, or whatever you feel is good for you, then you've got a group of people there already that will be interested in, and to start get that going. But yeah,
Okay.
Kindle, then paperback. Paperback can be 6 weeks. You can leave it up to 6 weeks if you want, before you can release that too.
Okay, great.
Okay. Is there any more questions to say? I'm happy to answer anything else that you've got any thoughts on.
Oh, I think I've got pretty much it was an experience, a good experience, you know, to delve into what I really want from my books,
Yeah.
what audience am I going for, and what to expect as I'm going through the writing process. That was very helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome, and that's what I'm here for. And I say, I really enjoyed the conversation with you. Again, you know, you're in the group, so quite happy to have a chat if you've got any more advice that you need. You know, that's what I'm here for. And again, it helps me make sure that the posts that I put out are helpful to help you guys. Thank you very much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. And I'll speak to you in the group. So thank you. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we go?
Okay.
No, okay. Thank you very much,
Okay.
Cindy. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye now.
Bye.